What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Kaye at a rainy Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles snapped their losing streak, barely winning in overtime over the New York Giants. Final score was 23-17. The Eagles are tied for the NFC East lead somehow in the year 2019, where they barely could beat the Giants, where they lost the Dolphins last week. As we see right now, they're probably going to win the NFC East. And that's just this season, like, in a nutshell.
If I were somebody speaking to Frank Abernathy from Catch Me If You Can, and he asked me, do you concur with that statement? I would say I concur. I do think they are going to the playoffs. I really do. I mean, this...
Where they deserve to is a different
discussion. Yeah, that's a whole different discussion. Yeah. But I think when you get a win like this... Look, you and I both wrote stories in the third quarter ready to just rip this team apart because they deserve to be ripped apart. But that second half drive to score 23 straight points against the Giants or anybody in the NFL or 20 straight points is very impressive.
Especially for a team that has struggled to score all year. Yeah.
Right. You know, last year, they've had problems with starting and stopping games. They closed tonight. For all the complainers about Zack Ertz being targeted too much, I don't think they've targeted him enough. To be honest, I think Zack Ertz is the playmaker on this offense, even more so than Carson Wentz. I think Zack Ertz is the guy that gets stuff done when his number's called, and that's why I think it was so frustrating for him, the Miami loss, where he had two really brutal drops. He had another game earlier this year where he was uncharacteristic. Yeah. But Zack Ertz constantly, when his number 86 is called, he is making big plays. And I think tonight is going to be one of those all-timers for him that you remember on prime time where the national audience sees him just unloading during the last two drives of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to think about the history of the Eagles, but like in the moment, he's for sure one of the 5 or top 3 most clutch players in team history. If you combine what he did in the Super Bowl with, he's had a bunch of game-winning touchdowns like this. He had the touchdown in regulation at the end to tie the game, and he had a touchdown in overtime to win it.
The touchdown pass, and we'll get more into it later, but the touchdown pass from Carson Wentz to Zack Ertz in the fourth quarter was maybe the best throw I've seen all season from him.
So I should say, well, the second one he was wide open, and he was also wide open on like multiple plays down the field late in the game.
But I think that also...
But let me get... the reason why that says a lot about the Giants is if you look at what was around Zack Ertz, at a certain point in the game, the only receiver... So we're going to criticize the Eagles for some things that they deserve some very serious criticism for, but they only had 2 healthy receivers by the end of the game, and those were Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
Actually... Correction, my good friend. They only had 1 healthy wide receiver because J.J. Arcega-Whiteside had to walk off for a couple of plays.
But, I mean, you get my point.
Yeah.
And they were playing Josh Perkins at wide receiver, and that was their wide receiver options. Josh Perkins, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Greg Ward. There should be 5 defenders on Zack Ertz, and there was nobody on him on multiple occasions.
Zach, what could go wrong?
So... where should we start? I guess we can start positive since we do tend to... People get mad at us for going negative all the time. Let's start with Carson Wentz. This was his most clutch performance he's probably had, like, in terms of winning a game down the stretch. I can't remember the last time he did that.
I'd say the Panthers game. The Panthers game was a pretty clutch. Like, just overall...
Did he bring them back and then win at the end on the last play?
No. That's fair. Yeah,
I'm not saying this relative to, like, the opponent.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, this was...
like, clutch... Carson Wentz at the end, fourth quarter, overtime.
This is a game that I think a lot of Eagles fans will remember just because the first half was so forgettable. And this place was doom and gloom. Like, you could feel it in the air.
There were boos. People were leaving the game.
There have been boo birds here before.
Yeah. I
mean, since we've covered the team. That was easily the loudest.
Before we covered the team, I think it's safe to say.
You know what? Maybe. I mean, I've been in the stadium when there's been a lot of boos. That was the loudest boos I've heard in here.
I mean, the crowd was clearing out a little bit after halftime.
Oh yeah,
like they were down 17-3 at halftime. See, we're already accidentally going to negative. So Carson Wentz.
But the reason why it'll be memorable is because what they overcame.
Yeah.
Listen, Carson Wentz has not played great during this 4-game stretch. He has not been great. That said, he has been given nothing to work with. I said this on Twitter, and I got a lot of feedback on it, positive and negative. For as much as this team has invested in Carson Wentz, the in-season investments they've made around him to fix
And
problems.
Investments.
Well, but I mean, look, on paper, we all were guilty of thinking this team was much better than it was. But when you realize how bad this offense's weapons were and you don't do anything, look, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, hold on to the draft picks. These guys need to get younger. Trading for Robbie Anderson when he's in his mid-20s and in his prime is not affecting your youth.
Yeah,
Trading for a 30-year-old corner, sure.
Yeah, and then that whole thing, like, and then you have him in the building, and then, you know, maybe he likes it here, and then you're more likely to be able to re-sign him.
He's from the area!
Yeah, well, I know, and my point being, like, you get the guy in the building, and then if it works, you work what you can do to sign him before free agency starts. They don't have that option now.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, but, so, like, Boston Scott, they don't win this game without Boston Scott. Which
Absolutely
not.
not.
Which is not a sentence I thought I'd be saying to you right now. And, you know, I think we kind of have to get into this now. So, there's just, like, been so many weird and strange things the Eagles have done personnel-wise, game day roster-wise, and one of the dumbest things they've done since I've started covering this team is having 3 healthy wide receivers on game day, or 3 active wide receivers on game day, and 7 cornerbacks.
Insane.
Like, yeah, like it's absolutely bonkers. And of course, one of them got hurt. Alshon Jeffrey might be out for the year now. That injury looked pretty serious.
Yeah, so did Lane Johnson's, but I think there's a report out there was a high ankle sprain, which means that he could still be out probably for the rest of the regular season.
What, 3 games left?
Yes, only 3. I know, the season's bananas.
Season.
B-A-N-A-N-A-S is what I've been told.
You haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I got to bring it back.
But so Boston Scott looks like a player, and it looks like why wasn't he on the roster from the beginning of the season over Darren Sproles? It's because Doug Peterson has too much love for Darren Sproles. That was a mistake. The Greg Ward one we've talked about on here, he had a really good catch towards the end of the game. He's clearly their most dynamic receiver, right? Mm-hmm. Josh Perkins, I mean, you've talked about how he was pretty bad in training camp.
He was awful.
But I mean, clearly there was something over the last 10 weeks that he was capable of coming up here because he looked pretty good today too. I don't know. They just done so many weird things this season. I don't know how many ways we could talk about Howie Roseman's roster building, but like they only beat the Giants by 6 points, and it's a win, and a win is a win, and now they can win the division. But there's a lot to be concerned about still. Yeah,
I mean, this is look, they shouldn't have won this game.
No. Against a team that's not the second worst team in the NFL right now, they don't win.
It's just hard to wrap your brain around this game because
we keep trying to be positive and it keeps going negative.
And you know what's weird is we're not invested in any of this, and it's still so perplexing as to how you can explain this to an audience, right? How can you make logic out of some of these moves? Look, Rob Davis has a following on draft Twitter. He's supposedly supposed to be good for a practice squad player. Marcus Green was a 6th-round pick. We saw Mark and Michelle do stuff.
One of these guys are going to be playing a lot.
Yeah, I think. And
they bring back J-Matt again.
And I think it'll be Rob Davis. But, again, I just... You know that Alshon's just a week recovered from being,
his calf injury, yeah.
Yeah, this team
wanted... planning.
Yeah, it's just... I don't understand. You had an entire weekend. You knew where Nelson was at. Why not... help yourself out. And it just, for me, it's like Howie Roseman has been brilliant at times during the last 4 years. This has been a perplexing thing. Unless you don't think this team's ready to compete for a Super Bowl, clearly they're not. But that's a big admission for him. You know what I mean? Without making those moves. And
you're saying he doesn't believe that this is a Super
Bowl team.
Right,
yeah. If you thought this was a Super Bowl team, you'd make...
go out and get something.
Last year's team struggled through injury too, and they traded for Golden Tate. Yeah, they didn't use him properly, but just because you fail once doesn't mean you're going to fail.
That's why I wonder if they were overreacting to that failure.
Yeah, I mean...
Again, this is all old territory that it's hard not to go back to.
Right, that's why I'm trying to give you something new out of this.
So let's go through some of the big moments of this game, good and bad. So Darius Slayton destroyed them, and though a lot of it had to do with just Ronald Darby he is bad at tackling. There was a miscommunication, it sounds like, between him and Rodney McLeod on the 55-yard touchdown.
It was another one of those inverted cover twos.
Darius Slayton, 5 catches, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns. That dude is a stud. He's better than any Eagles wide receiver, and he was a 5th-round pick this year.
He was taking 5 picks after Clayton Thorson.
Speed guy. Yeah. Oh, man. I didn't even think about that. That's brutal. That'll go down in history.
He averaged 30.8 yards per catch and had more than 2 catches. He had 5 catches. That's incredible.
That's ridiculous. For the first half, Eli Manning was looking better than Carson Wentz, and Carson turned it around in the second half.
It's because the pass rush was having issues.
But so it was like the whole thing about Jim Schwartz saying that he just needs the Eagles to get him 20 points and they can win. And that's pretty much what happened today. The defense played pretty well out if you look outside of I mean, there was mistakes there, but like the pass rush kind of came alive in the second half.
They only finished with 2 sacks, but I mean,
Vinny Curry too. So
Vinny Curry. It's a Vinny Curry story.
That's the weird thing. Like it's hard to find like a lot of crazy good things in here, but I don't know. Like Boston Scott had 10 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown, and 6 catches for 69 yards.
Yeah, see, that's what's impressive to me is for a running back to go 6 of 6, and they weren't just like drop off plays.
Long games.
They put him in space.
His longest was 17 yards, so they were all like in the 10 to 17.
Right. Jason Peters talked about this after the game. The guys that really stepped up, that's big because these guys are hungry. These are hungry dudes that want to show.
Squad guys, yeah.
You know, Scott, Perkins, Ward.
Perkins was 5 of 5. I don't know if he had 5 catches in training camp.
No, he definitely had more than 5 drops.
So
that's for sure.
Maybe the most shocking one that contributed to this game was Sidney Jones coming in for one play, getting a PBU that helped them win this game.
I talked to Sidney after the game, and he said, basically he didn't have any panic. He was ready. He kind of knew what was going to happen, and he thinks it's a play that people will remember for the rest of his career. He really hasn't had a signature play.
Was Mills hurt at that point? Is that why he went in?
Mills and Douglas both were hurt. And so they had Sidney just go out there, and it was 3rd down, 3rd and 3. Slayton, who was killing them, as we mentioned before, ran a slant, and Sidney broke it up. Like, that was a good play by Sidney. Sidney was in good position. It wasn't like a fluke play. He did a great job.
If he gets a chance to play again, that's a confidence boost type thing, and I wonder if they give him some shots down the stretch. I don't know, especially if Darby doesn't get his act together. Like he hasn't had a good stretch.
He hasn't. Like I said,
there's Mills, but
I mean, Mills is going to be hit or miss.
Yeah.
The problem with Darby is his extremes are so dramatically different. Like he'll give up a big play. He's a terrible tackler. And you're paying him to be your number 1 corner. Like, he's the only guy that's actually getting money. And so I think it's a problem. Like, I'd like to see Rasul Douglas out there. I'd like to see Craig James out there. I'd like to see other guys out there, frankly, because you're at this spot in the season now where, sure, you can give up a play or 2 here or there, but Darby's timing on some of these bad plays are really, really atrocious. And that missed tackle on Slayton was maybe one of the easiest tackles a corner could make, and he just failed.
Who's covering Terry McLaurin next week? Whoever's covering him is
I'd imagine it's going to be Darby.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. So, I just
And so that's kind of... So let's talk about the offensive line. So if Lane Johnson does wind up missing a couple weeks and you have Alshon Jeffrey out, I know the schedule is easy and the Redskins are bad, but you're still not in a great spot there. Like that, Lane Johnson has always been one of the most important guys on this team. And Ryan Kerrigan does a good job against Lane usually. He'll do a better job against Halapoulivaati Vaitai. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, look, you give Big V the entire week. This is not ideal. Like I mean, I don't. There's no way to.
There's so many knocks, but it's the Redskins. Like it's kind of like we were going to this week. You're like this, and this, but it's the Giants. So, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they won 17-13 next week.
Sure. I mean, I think we got to monitor whether Dwayne Haskins is playing or not. I can tell you for a fact that the Eagles are definitely hoping that Haskins
destroyed them in week
1. Yeah. They're hoping that young Dwayne is
so long
available.
Week 1, we were so much younger back then.
I've aged like at least 6 years, at least. But I also have a baby at home, so I think that's part of it too.
All right. But the Eagles sit here now at 6-7 and tied for the division lead in the NFC East and going into week 14, 15? Or into week 15?
Going into week 15.
Like, how do you feel about where, like, and we kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the pod, like, why do you think the Eagles are going to win the division?
For one, I think their schedule is very favorable. 2, I think the Cowboys are a team that, I said this to you earlier in the week. The Eagles were losing, but they weren't falling apart. Like, the locker room still likes each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's camaraderie there. I've been in a lot of losing locker rooms. I used to cover the Jaguars. And you can tell when a locker room is falling apart. This locker room wasn't falling apart. They were down on their luck. They were upset, certainly, but they didn't seem to be falling apart. The Cowboys seemed like a mess. Jason Garrett, and this is 90% Jerry Jones' fault. Jason Garrett has no pull in that locker room.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Jones is coaching the team, too.
Right. I mean, Jerry every single week is saying, blah, 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 Jason Garrett, we're job security.
He's an owner who named himself GM and talks to the media 2 to 3 times per week. Like, it's the most, like, there's nothing like this in sports.
It's asinine.
It's bonkers.
That said.
Anyway.
That said.
We haven't talked to Howie since we were babies.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. You didn't have facial hair.
Yes, and that's how you know it was a long time ago.
That said, I think that when you look at these two rosters, as bad as the Eagles have played and as badly banged up as they are, I don't trust Dallas at all. You know what I mean? So, I think overall the message you can take away from this Eagles team looked resilient tonight. If the defense, this is I believe the 5th time or 4th time in 5 games that they've held their opponents under 17 points, or 17 or less. And so I think you can take away from that. I mean, look, that Dolphins loss.
Black mark.
Yeah, really
Always
black mark. Look, they're gonna look back on this. The Atlanta loss too as like an absolute failed missed opportunity. The Lions loss again. They have 3 losses that are putrid on paper, and this isn't a great team. This isn't a good team. They're a whatever team. Like, that's what they are. And sometimes whatever teams can get hot. If you remember, I believe it was 2011 or 2010, the Seahawks that were 7-9, they were able to win a playoff game at home and create
They might have to play Seattle here. So.
Right, and create some chaos. And that's the thing. If you can be resilient and you have a good home field advantage, anything can happen in that first round. We saw the double joint last year. You know what I mean? So, and that was on the road. So this team's resilient for all of his whatever faults that he has. Doug Peterson's very good at keeping control of his locker room. I haven't gotten the vibe that he has lost the locker room at all, despite them being only 6-7. And this was a team that a lot of people had as a top 4 squad. They're more like a top 14 squad at best, but here we are.
And so the Eagles might stumble into the playoffs, and I think that's going to distract from the fact that this team is still maybe farther away from being a Super Bowl contender than we thought they were before the season. I don't know. They have enough holes going into this upcoming offseason that unless Howie Roseman just hits 100% again like he did in 2017, I don't see them getting back to that level yet. They need to replenish this roster with youth. They need to fill out this depth chart. They need to get Carson Wentz better weapons. So there's
a lot of work.
That's why I think there's fair reason to be concerned about the future of this team right now. While I also believe it is important for them to make the playoffs because Carson Wentz just needs that experience. Like, that's been like a weird debate amongst Eagles fans some who were like they should lose and get a better draft pick, and some were like Carson Wentz needs the playoffs. Carson Wentz needs the playoffs. Get to the playoffs.
Can I push back on you there? Why?
Why does he need?
No, I mean, like, obviously for his record and outside stuff, but from an experience standpoint, why?
I think, each offseason this stuff is hung over him how he can't stay healthy. This year he'll have played all 16 games completely healthy.
Well, there's 3 games left.
He's just about there. And if they miss the playoffs, this is going to be something that's going to be haunting him again all offseason. And
you don't think they're going to have the mark of, hey, they just moonwalked into the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. They were 9-7. You don't think that's going to weigh on him?
I think him finally making it will be the first step. And then the next, maybe it does, in the end, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I think for Carson Wentz, not for this team. I think for Carson Wentz, he needs to experience it.
And I'd agree with you. I was just curious.
Needs to show that he can win in a big moment or play well in a big moment.
Right. And you know what? Against a bad team, that was a big moment. I think that people are going to say, that's just the Giants or that, and that's fair, that's valid. This game shouldn't have been close on paper.
He had to show that he could do what he did at the end of the game.
Right. I thought the last 2 drives of this game were as impressive of drives as he's had pretty much the entire season. And I thought the first half was awful, but he was also set up to fail, pretty much. Now, moving forward, with Alshon potentially being out and Lane Johnson being out, I know you brought it up earlier, I don't know how Howie fixes this. Because he hasn't done a very good job. They've been very dependent on the practice squad, and I get it. You want guys that work hard in practice, and you want to see that stuff. Gotta tell you, if they've been sitting on your practice squad all season, they're probably not that good players. That said, they could be Greg Ward.
Nobody was trying to claim them, yeah.
Right, or they're not seen as good players. Greg Ward, pleasant surprise. Boston Scott really stepped up. But not every single practice squad guy is going to be that.
Even Craig James earlier this year.
Came
out of nowhere and had a game when he
Look, there's a reason to like these guys, but that said,
it's problematic that you need to.
Right, you're getting to the point where almost every guy that's been on your practice squad, at least for the majority of the season, is kind of on call, to be a contributor, and I think that's an issue, I just, at some point, not your luck, but your ability to adjust is going to catch up to you. Now, maybe Nelson Aguilar is good for next week, and that kind of helps you out a little bit, I guess. That said, them winning without him and Greg Ward producing plays without him and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside having one of the better catches that I've seen from an Eagles wide receiver pretty much all season. We've been hard on Nelson, and rightfully so. I don't know how much his return really helps you. So you've got to look. If Alshon's out for the remainder of the season, you're looking at a 2016 version of this Eagles team. And you know what? That didn't work. Having a great offensive line, having a really good quarterback.
Great offensive line without Lane, potentially.
Right. Listen, they had Ertz. They had this really good offensive line. They had, Dallas Goedert's really the only different variable in this.
Miles Sanders, I guess,
Yeah, Miles Sanders. Ryan Matthews is fine, I guess. But, yeah, look, this running game's going to have to step up. They ran the ball 32 times tonight. 5 of those were Carson. But 27 runs is pretty effective. And, if Boston Scott can be like this when they have Jordan Howard potentially back down the road, Boston Scott costs nothing.
Although I'm not so sure about Jordan Howard being
right. But maybe this makes him expendable. Yeah. If Boston Scott can, because he's been running hard. I know he hasn't really gotten a lot of opportunities, but he's
mostly
been
garbage time before.
Yeah, he's been running hard. I think Miles Sanders is starting to click. He's still doing a little bit of bouncing around. Yeah. But you look at what he's quietly been able to accomplish. He's 60 yards away from breaking Deshaun Jackson's scrimmage yards record. Yeah. And he's right behind LaShawn McCoy for the rookie rushing record. So there's stuff to like here. If they continue to use the running backs in the passing game and make this more of a Patriot-style offense, love it. But you got to see the progress. I thought Carson willed this team to victory in those last 2 drives. And beforehand, my main criticism that I was going to put into our At The Gun article, right at that, as the puck, I guess, dropped. Bad analogy. Yeah, sorry.
So that means it's
the ball dropped. Whatever. Anyway, Carson hadn't willed this team to victory, and franchise quarterbacks, fair circumstances or not, every now and then can raise the level of the play of the people around them.
Clearly, he did that tonight.
He did that tonight. Yeah. So I had to delete a whole thing. I basically had to rewrite my entire story.
We've kind of alluded to that this year, that maybe there's too much responsibility put on a quarterback to do that. But he also, if he wants to be considered elite, he has to be able to. This was we mentioned the guys that he was thrown to: J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Greg Ward, Josh Perkins, Boston Scott. If you had said those would be 4 of his top 5 receivers in week 14 before the season, you would have been like, all right, well, the Eagles are going to have a top 5 draft pick. So he did his job today.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if he started slow. Because he had some bad throws in the beginning.
Yeah, there were some rough throws. Again, I think this team is going to be this jigsaw puzzle of weirdness throughout the rest of the season. They're going to have to put new pieces in. Some of them are going to be ill fits. But they'll do what they need to do. I mean, look, you play 7 corners and you don't want to drop any of them.
In 2 weeks, Mark and Michelle's going to be like the number 2 receiver because more guys are going to get hurt.
Hey, look, that's speed on this offense. It'll keep a lot of the training camp watchdogs happy.
I wonder what it's like for a guy like that who was cut after training camp and didn't sign with anybody all year. So he's just kind of been lingering for 13 or 12 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
And then he gets picked up by the team that cut him all the way back then. It's got to be like weird walking into that room.
For sure. Certainly. And, this team, I think they need to sign 2 of these dudes, to be honest. I think they need to sign 2 of these wide receivers.
Call up, you're saying?
Yeah, because, at some point, it's becoming an epidemic that these guys are getting, just injured on the regs.
If Sean winds up on IR, then they're going to have at least one open roster spot.
Right, and I'm expecting that call tomorrow. Or that
happens that quickly? If it's a ruptured Achilles.
Yeah, I mean...
David Chow speculated based on, the video that it was a ruptured Achilles, which would end the season.
Yes,
and then
some.
Is that the same injury Brooks suffered?
Yes.
Yeah, and, he was back... different specimens, but
yeah.
He was back in 8 months.
Yeah.
So he'd be back in time for next season if he was...
Theoretically.
Although, we should say, if they were ever going to trade him, it won't happen now.
Or cut him. Yeah, his contract's guaranteed anyway, but...
Yeah. It was going to cost a lot, whatever they did.
Yeah, rough one. It's a rough break. Yeah. Or care, I guess you could say.
This receiver group is going to look so much different.
Well, and then Jalen Mills, too, with the elbow. You don't know what that's going to be.
He didn't end up going back in the game either, right?
No.
Miles Sanders left briefly, and then he came back.
Listen, I think this team is in a weird spot.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Well, maybe they can sign Mills on the cheap and re-sign him. I don't know.
A lot of decisions to make this offseason.
Yeah, this is I don't envy Howie Roseman. I think he has been dealt a really tough bout of luck. You tweeted out a couple of weeks ago the Eagles traded their souls for the Super Bowl, and a lot of the devil's coming to collect.
You just think about everything that went right that year. It's just unreal to think about.
And you know what?
You just watch a highlight of Nick Foles and some of those throws he had in the playoffs are some of the best throws I've ever seen in my life that he'll never replicate again.
Well, what's funny is when you look back at it too, winning a Super Bowl takes luck unless you're the Patriots. Yeah. It really does. It's perplexing. It's tough.
Look, he hit on every free agent and trade he made that year, and he hasn't hit on a free agent since then.
Yeah, everything seemed to work. It just
Yeah. I guess we're living in the past, like Orlando Scandrick has said that they shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, maybe I don't know. Orlando Scandrick's got a lot to say, and really not a lot to back anything up. Yeah,
I didn't think I would bring up Orlando Scandrick today, but here we are. It was a weird night. It's almost 1:30 in the morning. We hope you guys listen to this and leave us some comments. We'll read them on the next episode. It should be back to a regular schedule this week in terms of Eagles practice and whatnot. We got the Redskins in Landover, Maryland on Sunday.
Landover.
Worst stadium in the NFL. So.
It's not even close.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
So
if you're making that trip, all the power to you.
Yeah, that's it's probably a cheap ticket.
Yeah, sure. There were tickets here for $30 before
it was raining.
I know, but still it's Eagles.
So I want to cover a snow game this season.
Well, you don't have to sit outside in the snow.
Right, yeah. You guys, who cares about you guys? I want to cover a snow game. I've got a pair of socks that I got as a gift.
Snow socks?
Yeah, no, it's a snowman with a helmet on. It says the Snow Bowl, and so I want to wear those that game as a.
That's the reason.
Yeah,
I just want to wear these socks.
Look, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you know that I wear new socks every single game. It's my gimmick. But
I hope you don't wear the same socks every single game.
No, I do not. My wife makes sure. But yeah, on that note, I think that's when we cue the music, right?
Yeah. All right, we'll end on that note. We'll talk to you guys later this week.